Recently, I met with Vito, who is a car designer at Hyundai. Very nice person, and while listening his story about how he became a car designer, I found it very interesting, very nice, so I decided to record it. We decided to make a quick interview, so you can hear his story directly from him about being a car designer at Hyundai, about this whole journey, and also some advices for students who want to be car designers. Let's jump into it. So, where did you study? Not in Amsterdam.
I studied actually first in a small school or relatively unknown university, which is called University of Twente. And basically it's one of the three so-called technical universities in the Netherlands. So I actually started doing industrial design engineering, it's called first, which is this kind of weird mix of mechanical engineering light, I would say, a little bit, plus industrial design. And this is because in the Dutch education system, we have a bit of a, I would say I'm not a fan of it, but a bit of a, it's a bit of an old school way of dividing education where people encourage you to always go to the technical university because obviously you get a good job there, and these kind of technical or scientific universities, there's only 3 of them, and basically they all offer a design course, but the design course there is always this technical scientific one, basically. But this was in the East.
So rather than art, it was focused on the technique.
Yeah,
the studies.
Yeah, actually yes, and I think it's also a bit the mindset in the Netherlands that people are. I think there is a lot of good designers and art from the Netherlands. I mean, people know Van Gogh, right? But the mindset when it comes to design is usually focused on manufacturing, efficiency. It's a bit also what you see in Germany, but I think the Dutch are even more, I would say, obsessed about efficiency and about how can we make it. You do have this artistic kind of schools, like a very famous one is the Dutch Design Academy in Eindhoven. But there is this thing in Dutch education that when you do well at school, when you're interested in, like I was this absolute nerd who was, I was always reading books as a kid, and I was very much enjoying school, so I was obviously doing well. And then people discourage you to go to an art academy because it's considered lower level. So when you're, for example, your family members on meetings, family meetings or gatherings, when they hear like you want to do car design, they're like, oh, you have to go to that school, right? And so that's why I chose in the end. There was not even a choice. You just choose one of those 3 technical universities.
But when you were choosing, did you know that you want to be a car designer? Was it the goal, or you just wanted to study industrial design?
I mean, if I'm very frank, I think I did want to become a car designer already at high school. So I was around, I think, 14 when I started to realize that this is a cool profession. But I wasn't committed or very goal-oriented. I had this idea and I thought, okay, and the people then tell you then industrial design is the closest you can get in the Netherlands because unfortunately we don't have car design. So that's what I did. But I think I had more the mindset of, if I discover something else on the way, which is cool, I do that. But I think I consciously also had this idea that during studying, you get like consumer products, but also like medical kind of design. But there was nothing that in the end I realized was as exciting to me as transportation. So I kept the idea and. Yeah.
But what about your journey from that point on? Like, how did you get a job at Hyundai, and what was the link in between?
Yeah, so basically I knew that after 3 years at university, plus I did some kind of, it's like a Formula student-ish thing, like Shell Eco Marathon, where you develop a hydrogen car. I realized, okay, that was very technical, by the way. That was 1 year full-time, and I realized, okay, I want to do the creative side. And then I went first to Italy, to IED, Istituto Europeo di Design in Turin, where I did a small 4-week course. That was really yeah, it was very very basic. It was just a kind of overview of car design, and that actually really sparked both my enthusiasm, but also my the realization, like shit, I really, if I want to go into car design, I need to better start pushing and also get into an environment like that, because you saw at that school, and I think even the teachers told us that the contacts were there and they had the network, which is important. So after that, I actually first went to. After that, I still wasn't sure what if I wanted to do an artistic master degree, and I think because it was still the same kind of thinking that, like, in the Netherlands, it's even being, the culture is even that when you are at university, at least, when you don't do a master, people say that you're nothing. It's like a bachelor. That's a bit of I would say, a culture I don't like, that people are like, yeah, bachelor's worth nothing. You always need to do a master. And I think I wasn't ready to go abroad or to do something artistic. So I kind of stayed in my lane, but I went to TU Delft. So it's industrial design faculty at another big technical university, but this one is more internationally kind of, let's say, renowned. So they had some experience with car design. So some people know Laurens van den Akker. He's this Renault guy, Renault boss, and Adrian van Hooijdonk. So they were this kind of famous, also Dutch people that people talk about and that you look up to. And I was like, so they must do a lot of car design there. In fact, it was actually very theoretical. It was this kind of industrial design meets design thinking approach. You know what they do. It's so also almost like strategic and a lot of research based, which was interesting. But I wanted to really learn the craft, I guess, and for that I applied to Umeå University because I saw they had a partnership where I did. So basically, I was doing my product design masters, and in my second year I could go to Umeå for half a year, and that was really, that was in many ways it was a really magical experience because it's in this far north in Lapland, so it feels almost like you're going to Hogwarts or something. It's like far away in the snow, you know. And it's really, I think Hogwarts is, I heard many people say this analogy because it's also really this feeling of a lot of people, bunch of people from different backgrounds together in one space. They have to almost rely on each other because you have this cold, dark even, hostile almost environment. So inside it's very cozy, and what was really cool about Umeå is that the spirit and the atmosphere was very, very collaborative. So it was not at all, I would say, competitive, but rather people were really helping each other. And I think maybe the attitude of also, and the location play a bit of a role. And I have to say all the actual skills that come with the craft of car design rather than, you know, the knowledge or something. The actual craft, I learned it, most of it there. Yeah.
And you mentioned about like the importance of network. Umeå, like.
In the end, not really, I have to say. I have to go back to my to the head of school to ask him why not. No. But I was doing right after that school. I was planning to do an internship, and I did ask, and I did get some contacts from them. The irony was that right after I went back to the Netherlands to start making a portfolio and apply, the pandemic happened. So one hand good, I had a lot of time suddenly to make a portfolio, but at the other hand, it didn't really matter what my contacts were, because I think in the beginning when I was sending it out, I always got the same reply, that they had no resources, or that they weren't even able to work, basically. So that was a bit challenging, I would say. But the strange thing and the irony was that actually the first thing I sent out was to Hyundai. It was because there was a former student at my school, Joost Bianchi.
Because you talk about many schools.
Okay, sorry. So there was a former student from Delft, a Dutch guy, Joost, who also happened to study a few years above me, and he was actually doing strategic product design master. So somehow, but he had like an insane Behance and Instagram profile. So I was like, and somehow he was. It felt like he was self-taught. I think he did do something in Coventry, like also an exchange. But I mean, doing strategic product design, which is very like also theoretical, and I mean, he managed to develop a very impressive skill set. And he was working at Hyundai, and I think one day I just thought, because I don't know, I felt Hyundai was somehow fitting in terms of brand. I was thinking, okay, it's a bit what Sebastian was also saying, like, I didn't really know the brand, and what I knew was not particularly exciting. You know, when you ask in the Netherlands, which is not a very car-oriented country, right? Bicycles and stuff. People they ask like Hyundai, Honda, like where are you working, right? And that was back then still in 2020, but I felt somehow like, okay, maybe it felt like a bit of an underdog brand, and it did feel therefore quite approachable, and it was not so far from home, being in Frankfurt, so it's like 3.5 hours with the high-speed trains. But somehow I felt, and they're like quite pushing for innovation. Maybe that could be something where I fit, because I came from this more industrial design, but also this school where they focus a lot of, like, they were talking in my masters a lot about like innovation, and they have these kind of IDEO kind of talks, so I thought maybe it could be a fit. It's a company that wants to grow, right? And they have some fresh ideas on the future, rather than maybe a very established OEM, at least in Europe. So I sent Joost a message, and he gave me the contacts of my current manager. And the irony was that I sent him that was the first person I sent it to, because I felt it was kind of naturally could work. But obviously after that, I was just totally sending it out everywhere, not realizing that same day, he already replied to me. And he was like, let's have a talk. And I think I just totally missed it, because it was just, my manager's message was just covered with a lot of declines, a lot of, refusals. I'm sorry, we cannot do anything. I'm sorry, we're not interested, whatever, So yeah.
Did you, like on this first message, for example, on the contact?
Yeah.
Did you already send your portfolio, or was it just a message that I'm interested in working with you type of thing? Like, how did you approach your first message to potential manager?
I think I did include something of a portfolio, or at least I think I would have at least included a preview, because I think it's always important to cut to the cut the crap, or like get down. But I mean, in the end, that's what shows a person's not only abilities but also, I guess, motivation.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And since 2020, you said?
Yeah, so I first did an internship. I did my master thesis project at the sister studio, Genesis, which was back then also somewhat around. Now they have a separate studio. And I basically stayed. Yeah.
Before that, I'm also curious. You studied industrial design.
Yeah.
And now you are interior designer at Hyundai.
Yes, exactly.
Do you see the relationship between industrial design and being an interior designer? Because compared to exterior, it's different approach. Do you see the advantages?
Definitely. I mean, it's a cheesy comparison, but like I think many people say, or a cheesy way of saying it, but it's often being compared as that interior design is the kind of a in-between product/industrial design and automotive design, because simply the focus on the user is a bit bigger, I would say, because he or she is more involved with the interactions, the functionalities, the ergonomics, etc. There's a bit more human touch points, right? So that's also what's important in the user centricity is also what's being emphasized in industrial design. Whereas also, of course, the actual the styling of it is equally important, and that is, I think, more what you see, of course, in exterior design classically. Yeah.
And first of all, it's great to hear your story.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
a detailed version. It's nice.
You can cut away what you want.
It's great. Do you have any advice for somebody who wants to be a car designer, interior or exterior, or maybe general, more than one advice? What would you like to say?
I would say that if I look back also on my development and my insecurities also, which I think everybody has, and which is totally fine, especially in this job where it's a lot about comparing each other, where people are naturally doing this, and it's very competitive. I think it's always good to realize that in the end, I think what counts most, but that's maybe the perspective I have also from coming from a company like Hyundai, where they are, they're quite unexpected sometimes with designs. Instead of pasting a face over different models, they really appreciate creativity, and I think that's also what I believe in. That in the end, the creativity is what counts. So wherever you are in the world, and whatever you're studying, whatever your skills are, I think being able to show that you're creative and developing this is, to me, way more important than showing a very nice polished rendering. Because first of all, everybody can now make super nice things with, for example, AI. But also, if there's a super nice sketch without a good idea, or maybe without even a idea, maybe it's just an illustration of something you already know, there's basically nothing a company could use, right? But let's say, this is a bit of an extreme example, but let's say you have 10 crappy doodles of great ideas. There's always a way to get that idea out of there, right? So either because you develop your skills and you learn how to better communicate, or by using other media that we have nowadays. And I think it's also important because of social media nowadays that people realize that in the end, there's so much distraction with flashy images, but in the end, I think what actually counts is the creativity behind it.
Yeah, that's actually great. Like, I have next question connected to this.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
If somebody wants to apply to Hyundai or any car brand, what would you suggest about the portfolio? Like, do you have any portfolio suggestions? Because I get asked many times, like, how many pages should it be? How many projects should it be too crazy? Can I add industrial design stuff on my car design portfolio?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that it does, I think, really depend on where you apply. And in that sense, I have only the perspective of my current company. But a disclaimer. But I think a good way of saying it is that you can put as many pages or projects as you need, but not more, so like, keep it short and concise, but make sure it's not too short that you cannot show yourself as a personality and in terms of creativity. Just one thing to add is that it also depends where you are applying and for what. So I can imagine, like, I think one thing I see also with interns, for example, in our case, is that for a student, you can be more free. It does make sense to have in terms of practical advice now, it's like, it does make sense to have projects where the form language, for example, or the ideas are a little bit resonating with the brand, So like, I had this personal experience. I was applying to Lexus Toyota as an intern for an internship, and they were like sending me feedback that it was not extravagant enough and it was not good, and whereas Hyundai was like, it's more producty and simple, we like it, right? So that's also good, because the hopeful message behind it is, by the way, that you can find your place, right? But it does help if it's a little bit in line, and not necessarily that you have to do that, but maybe you can think about where you would fit and therefore make it easy. That's, I think, quite important. Yeah.
Perfect. And thanks a lot. It was great meeting you here.
Yeah.
It's great to do this interview, because I think it's a great message for students as well.
Yeah, I mean, my pleasure, and nice to meet you too. And no, it's always great to share and help other people. Yeah. Thanks.
First of all, thank you, Vito, for making this interview and sharing all your story with us. And thank you for watching this video until here. If you're interested in developing your skills further, I have my own car design courses at berkaplan.com, so you can level up your car design skills. See you in the next video.